Good evening. We've just emerged from the meeting of the ANC National Executive Committee, which held its regular meeting on a virtual platform from the 26th to the 29th of March. We were honored with the presence of President Mbeki, President Zuma, past presidents of the African National Congress. We held robust and very in-depth discussions on a variety of issues. In the main, the meeting discussed the foremost priorities for 2021, but more in particular, the response of our nation to COVID-19 pandemic and the economic reconstruction. The meeting reviewed the ANC's program of action for 2021 and held a session with the Integrity Commission to receive and discuss its reports as well as recommendations on both generic issues impacting on its work and specific cases it has processed. On the response to COVID-19, the NEC took place on the first anniversary of the implementation of a nationwide lockdown to contain the spread of the virus. We're very much aware that when we started meeting, this was the day when the lockdown commenced. The decisive measures taken in the early days of the outbreak of the COVID-19 in our country helped to delay the spread of the virus and enabled the preparation of our health facilities for the expected rise in infections. The National Executive Committee of the ANC would like to commend the people of South Africa for the unity, the solidarity, and the discipline that they have displayed over the last year. Difficult year it has been. Despite great hardship and difficulty, most South Africans have diligently adhered to the necessary restrictions and they have generally observed the health protocols. We do acknowledge that in managing this unprecedented situation, mistakes may have been made, and the responsibility of the government and the rest of society is to rectify such weaknesses as and when they arise. And this we can do working together collectively. The NEC would like to salute the health workers of our country who, often at great risk to themselves, have cared for the sick and have saved many, many lives. We salute other frontline workers who have ensured the uninterrupted provision of essential services to our people throughout the period of this pandemic. We pay tribute to those on the front line who have lost their lives to COVID-19 and extend our sympathies to their families, to their colleagues, and to their friends. We also extend our sympathies to many other South Africans who have lost their loved ones. Our foremost priority at this time is to intensify all efforts to unite all South Africans to overcome the pandemic. In this phase, this requires a society-wide effort to ensure the success of the vaccination campaign. The NEC welcomed the progress made in the vaccination of health workers, especially in the light of the challenges presented by the emergence of a new variant. The meeting agreed, however, that the vaccination program does need to be significantly accelerated and scaled up. The NEC called on all relevant government entities to work with social partners as well as other stakeholders to ensure that we urgently procure and we distribute and we administer sufficient vaccine doses to meet the country's needs. Working with other countries on our continent, Africa, and in the developing world, South Africa should intensify its campaign against vaccine nationalism, what is now being seen as a vaccine apartheid. The NEC emphasized that the vaccine program does not subtract from the need to maintain our efforts to prevent the spread of the pandemic, and that we must maintain basic health protocols that are critical for our collective safety. This includes the maintenance of reasonable restrictions on the size of gatherings, the mandatory wearing of masks in public spaces, physical distancing and other measures required to contain transmission. The NEC further supported the stance by the South African government, the African Union and other nations to call for the World Trade Organization to waive the intellectual property and other provisions of TRIPS to allow expanded manufacturing of COVID-19 vaccines as a global public good. The NEC welcomed the sections in the 2021 ANC annual program of action, which dealt with the campaign against COVID-19 as one of the priorities for 2021. Through this campaign, we will continue to educate our communities and the different sectors of society identified in the various vaccine phases. The meeting emphasized concern at the possibility of increased transmission of the virus during the Easter and other holidays in the coming period. The ANC wishes strongly to reiterate the advice that has been given by our scientists and health authorities for all South Africans to exercise maximum care and to act responsibly so that we can avoid a potentially devastating third wave of infections. On the issue of economic recovery, the NEC reaffirmed that alongside the defeat of COVID-19, economic recovery is our foremost priority this year. The National Executive Committee welcomed the progress that has been made in the implementation of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, particularly with respect to areas like employment stimulus, economic reform, and infrastructure. The NEC expressed concern around the ongoing electricity generation challenges in our country and therefore welcomed the recent decision by the Department of Minerals Energy on the emergency procurement of electricity. The NEC expressed hope that the matter pertaining to broadband spectrum allocation will be resolved without any delay. The meeting agreed that while there is a pickup in the implementation of infrastructure projects, the pace needs to be accelerated. The NEC further urged the business community to support the recovery process by accelerating productive investments in the economy. The NEC decided that it will convene a special session to evaluate the implementation of the Economic Recovery Plan and the Program of Economic Transformation. With regards to funding of higher education, a matter that has concerned many in our country, especially students at higher levels of education institutions. The NEC received a report on the funding of higher education. It noted the important progress that has been made over the last decade towards our commitment to provide free higher education to poor and working class students. It noted that tremendous funding over a number of years has actually been made available. It's been rising year and year and covering students on an ongoing basis. The NEC welcomed the work in progress to look at solutions to address the student debt, as well as the critical issue of funding of higher education broadly, particularly for the missing middle. The NEC agreed with the caution that we must ensure that we do not underfund the critical TVET, community education and training and skills sector. These components are critical to empowering millions of young people in our country, as well as ensuring lifelong learning and adult education and literacy. On the issue of land redistribution and reform, the NEC received a report on work progress in Parliament on the expropriation bill and the amendments to Section 25 of our Constitution. It confirms the approach by Parliament that if we only rely on restitution, it will take us decades to resolve the historical injustice, and hence the need to focus on land reform, redistribution, as well as expropriation. The NEC further recalls its comprehensive decisions on this matter taken at its meeting in May 2019 following the Land Reform Summit in March of that same year, and urge all our structures and members to support the process in Parliament and to make submissions guided by the ANC positions in these public participation processes. With regard to strengthening constitutional democracy, the NEC discussed the need to support and strengthen all institutions that contribute to the advancement of our constitutional democracy. While no arm of the state is above criticism, the ANC distances itself from attacks on the judiciary that seek to undermine its legitimacy and the decisions that it takes. Our Constitution provides sufficient safeguards against the abuse of power by any arm of the state, and any person who has evidence of any misdemeanor or abuse should make use of the available remedies that are clearly outlined in our legislative instruments. The NEC reaffirmed the decision of its 54th National Conference to support the establishment of a judicial commission of inquiry into the allegations of state capture. It therefore reiterated its support for the work of the Zondo Commission and called on all ANC members and supporters, and indeed all members of society, to assist the Commission in its work. Several ANC leaders have made or are scheduled to make submissions to the Commission. And President Cyril Ramaphosa, that's myself, will be appearing before the Commission on the 22nd and the 23rd of April in his capacity as the current ANC President and former ANC Deputy President. The NEC views its submission as necessary to the work of the Commission and important for the broader effort to confront state capture and ensure that such activities are never allowed to happen again in our country. The NEC noted that the presiding officers of Parliament, who are ANC deployees, are also due to appear before the Commission. On the issue of the public protector, the NEC reflected on the ANC's approach to the issue of the public protector currently in Parliament. The NEC noted that the matter was dealt with in terms of the rules adopted by the National Assembly for the removal of a head of a Chapter 9 institution. Now, following the findings of the independent experts that the public protector has a prima facie case to answer, the ANC caucus agreed to support a motion in the National Assembly to move to the next stage of the process in terms of its rules. The NEC confirmed the responsibility of the ANC Political Committee in Parliament to oversee matters before caucus and consult with and be guided by the national officials and the ANC headquarters as and when it is required. With regard to the ANC Programme of Action for 2021, the NEC received a report on the campaigns undertaken by the organization since the last NEC and the update on the plans for the coming 3 months. NEC reaffirmed its commitment to activities under the banner of unity, renewal, and reconstruction in the year of Charlotte Maxeke. The NEC urged all its structures and members to mobilize and organize around the following activities that are planned in the coming 3 months. The Easter COVID-19 Public Health and Education Campaign is a specific campaign that must be focused on. The commemoration of the passing of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela on the 2nd of April, the Charlotte Maxeke Week from the 1st to the 10th of April with the ANC Women's League, the anniversary of Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu Day on 6th of April, the commemoration of Comrade Chris Hani on the 10th of April, the COVID-19 campaign to be devolved at district level, preparations for the holding of BBGMs, the preparation for May Day and Africa Month, as well as Youth Month and Freedom Charter Day in June. Now, our Executive Committee noted the report on preparations for local government elections and appreciates the work already done that is also being carried out and that's also planned under the guidance of the National Elections Team, and urges all structures of our organization to focus on this critical elections work, fixing local government and reconnecting with the people towards an overwhelming ANC victory in the local government elections. The National Executive Committee further agreed that the Ethiopia-Tigray conflict and its resolution should be taken forward under our program on advancing the African agenda. On organizational matters, preparation for our BBGMs, regional and provincial conferences, the NEC received a report of the organizing committee, amongst others. The meeting endorsed the amendments to the guidelines for BBGMs, the regional and provincial conferences as presented, and it endorsed the new cutoff date for the membership of these conferences. It noted the update on the membership, ANC membership, and the ongoing development on the online membership system. It requested headquarters to do the verification based on the guidelines of those branches that have already gone to the BBGM and provide feedback to the provinces and affected branches and on the status of their BECs. We also discussed matters that pertain to one of our provinces, the Northwest Province. The NEC noted the concern raised by the Interim Provincial Committee of the Northwest regarding the ability to carry out their mandate in the province. The meeting instructed the officials to urgently meet with our IPC there, as well as NEC Northwest deployees, to finalize the matters raised by the IPC before the end of April 2021. And our interim provincial committee is further urged to establish its own provincial integrity commission as a matter of urgency, so that it can deal with the matters that the commission should deal with. We also discussed the appointment of the ANC Youth League National Congress Preparatory Committee. The National Executive Committee noted the report of the work done by the ANC officials, as mandated by the last NEC, to finalize, after consultations with provinces, a National Congress Preparatory Committee of the ANC Youth League, with a proviso that it should be constituted by ANC Youth League members who are below 35, and it must be gender balanced, and it must also have representatives from all provinces. We also, as the NEC, welcomed the ANC Electoral Committee that has been appointed and convened, and we were briefed on the terms of reference, and we were informed that this committee has met. The Electoral Committee consists of comrades Kgalema Motlanthe as the chairperson, Comrade Tintingane as the deputy chairperson, Comrade Amos Masondo as the member, Comrade Hani Dimpo Hani, Comrade B. Chwete, Nora Fakude, Theo Steele, and Loretta Jacobs. We also spent some time discussing the issue of patriarchy in the ANC and broader society. The National Executive Committee expressed its deep concern about statements that reflect patriarchal attitudes and that tend to denigrate women. These include statements on social media and elsewhere by leaders of the ANC. Such statements are unacceptable and have no place in the ANC or in society. The meeting reaffirmed the ANC's unwavering commitment to gender equality. This necessarily involves measures to ensure the equal representation and participation of women in all leadership structures of the ANC, in government and in other parts of society. It also requires constant reminders and political education of all members and leaders. In this regard, the meeting agreed to undertake a program of gender sensitivity training throughout the ANC, starting with the NEC itself. The NEC also spent considerable amount of time discussing unity and cohesion in the ANC. The meeting discussed the task of forging unity and cohesion within the movement. This is essential to the ANC's ability to undertake its historic mission to unite the South African people in building a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous society. The ANC reaffirmed its commitment to principled unity, a unity that is based on the mission and values of the ANC. National Executive Committee therefore condemned the establishment of groups operating as an organized faction within the ANC to undermine the ideological and organizational integrity of the ANC. The NEC warned those who wish to subvert the ANC by seeking to create diversions that we will not tolerate, that are meddling in the internal affairs of the ANC, or to use of ANC resources to undertake counter-revolutionary activities from within its structures and facilities. The meeting agreed that no ANC member should associate themselves with or be involved in the so-called RET forces. Furthermore, the NEC will not allow any member of the ANC staff to use the resources and premises of the ANC to hold meetings of the RET or any other faction. In terms of Rule 25.9 of the ANC Constitution on institution of disciplinary proceedings, the NEC directs the presenter of the ANC to investigate these matters and, if deemed necessary, to immediately formulate charges for the attention of the National Disciplinary Committee. The NEC also noted the re-emergence of an orchestrated campaign of fake news directed at a number of ANC leaders, including President Cyril Ramaphosa. This is akin to the disinformation crusade South Africa experienced during the height of state capture. As before, these machinations, which are aimed at undermining organizational and societal renewal and at subverting the process of social transformation, will fail. It is the responsibility of all ANC members and indeed all freedom-loving South Africans to protect and advance the gains of our democracy. The NEC also noted the emergence of social movements which include some prominent ANC stalwarts with the expressed desire to defend our constitutional democracy. The NEC calls on all ANC members to also ensure that they actively participate in the structures and processes of the movement to advance their views. The NEC reaffirmed the requirement in the Constitution that all leaders abide by decisions of the collective and desist from making statements that contradict agreed positions of the movement. Public statements by any senior leader of the ANC that misrepresent policy positions of the movement and decisions of its structures are therefore condemned without any reservation. Related to these developments is the narrative gaining currency on various public platforms that the challenges the ANC faces with regard to unity and cohesion are a reflection of a multiplicity of factions pursuing their selfish interests. We wish to state very clearly that there is only one ANC, with constitutional and other structures responsible for taking decisions on a variety of issues. Articulation and enforcement of decisions of the ANC legitimately arrived at is therefore not an act of factionalism. On the issue of the unity of former MK combatants, the NEC expressed concern at the use of the name of Umkhonto weSizwe, the glorious army of our people, to promote factionalism in the ANC and engage in acts of social instability. The meeting warned against utterances or actions that bring the proud history and noble legacy of Umkhonto weSizwe into disrepute. The meeting urged the implementation of conference resolution to urgently convene a conference to form a united structure of all MK military veterans. And in this regard, processes should be initiated to bring the MK Military Veterans Association, MKMVA, and the MK National Council together towards the convening of the United Conference. Members of these structures are urged to desist forthwith from any activities that contribute to social disorder in society or cause disunity or factionalism in the ANC. On the issue of the Integrity Commission and related matters, the NEC met with the members of the ANC Integrity Commission. Both the NEC and the Integrity Commission appreciated the opportunity to engage in an open and frank discussion aimed at combating corruption and other forms of unethical behavior that threaten to undermine the country and our organization. The NEC expressed full and unconditional appreciation and support for the Integrity Commission in the execution of its mandate to provide leadership in the combating of unethical conduct, in promoting integrity, honesty, and increasing compliance with the Constitution, the rules and code of conduct by members of the ANC, as well as to protect the ANC from being brought into disrepute. The NEC agreed that the Commission's mandate is primarily focused on dealing with ethical matters and defending the reputation and integrity of the ANC, not determining the guilt or innocence of individuals. The NEC also commended the Commission on the progress with the development of an ANC ethical framework, which will be discussed by the ANC structures leading up to the National General Council. The NEC agreed that the work of the Integrity Commission must be supported through appropriate capacitation, regular engagements, and expeditious processing of its reports. The National Executive Committee resolved the individual reports of the Integrity Commission dealing with individual members should be processed by the officials and the NWC and be dealt with at a special NEC meeting. Now, with regard to implementation of resolutions and guidelines on the issue of stepping aside, the NEC reaffirmed the resolutions of the 54th National Conference on ANC credibility and integrity, as well as decisions of the NEC meetings, which were held in August of last year and in December of last year on the implementation of these resolutions. The NEC resolved that these resolutions must be implemented in line with the guidelines and procedures adopted by the NEC at its meeting on the 13th and 14th of February 2021. All members who have been charged with corruption or other serious crimes must step aside within 30 days, failing which they should be suspended in terms of Rule 2570 of the ANC Constitution. The meeting emphasized that the 30-day period will be used to enable the implementation of the decision in line with the guidelines, and this is not for the review of the decision. The NEC also agreed that the provincial chairpersons and secretaries would meet with the national officials during the time to further refine the guidelines, to make additions and to sharpen them, to ensure the resolution can be effectively and practically implemented. The Secretary General's office will work with the provinces to identify all people affected and inform them of the decision. The ANC welcomed the decision by the ANC Secretary General, Comrade Ace Magashule, to use this time to seek the counsel of past leaders of our movement, and the ANC supports our Secretary General in this effort. The NEC called on all ANC members to rally around this decision and not to engage in any acts of indiscipline, including through mobilization or public statements that undermine the implementation of conference resolutions. On the election of a new NWC member, the National Executive Committee elected Comrade Gwen Ramaphosa, Dr. Gwen Ramaphosa, to fill the vacancy on the National Working Committee left vacant by Comrade Noma India Mfeketo following her appointment as an ambassador of our country in the United States. That in large measure covered the various matters that were discussed and engaged by the National Executive Committee. As I said at the beginning, this was a robust National Executive Committee, and I'm proud to say that the National Executive Committee spent a considerable amount of time debating serious issues. Issues where members of the NEC had an opportunity to express themselves, and of course, like the living organism that the NEC is, there are different views on a variety of matters. But in the end, we were able to find one another in uniting the ANC and keeping this valuable instrument of transformation and changing the lives of our people together. And this is something that we as ANC members are immensely proud of. Thank you.